The woman, like always, was waiting for her first client of the day. After all, every person stepping off the train was a billionaire. She had the looks of a supermodel. But here, she was nothing more than a hostess. To ensure the safety of the wealthy guests, she carefully explained the rules ahead. First, she recommended a suitable weapon. Then, she suggested picking out an outfit he liked. Soon, William had made his choices. He asked the woman if there was a changing room. She told him there wasn't, but if he wanted, she could help him change herself. Faced with such a beautiful temptation so close, William still chose to decline, because after asking, he found out the woman was just a robot. What truly excited him was still to come. The world behind that door was the real beginning for him. He rushed to the door, barely able to contain himself, and pushed it open. In an instant, he was transported to another world. The fresh, unfamiliar atmosphere made him feel awkward, but the alcohol gave him a rush of excitement. Soon, his brother, who had just finished his own thrill, arrived as well. Suddenly, the entire room shook. The dim lighting was replaced by a burst of brightness. When William came to, he was shocked to realize they were on a speeding train. This is a resort exclusively for wealthy visitors. But for first-timer William, everything still felt unfamiliar. Instinctively, as he walked, he couldn't help but glance around, and because of that, he accidentally bumped into someone. His brother acted so fearlessly because everyone here was just a robot. They existed for only one reason: to entertain. Human excitement came from the thrill of the unknown. Like the old man William went to help, turns out, that gesture triggered a side mission. But before it could begin, his brother quickly pulled him away. As a regular here, his brother's thrill threshold was way beyond normal. He often did things that others would never understand. And now, that old man who kept trying to bother William became his outlet for violent release. What just happened left William feeling uneasy. Just then, the woman from earlier suddenly appeared, offering to spend a pleasant night with him, but he wasn't in the mood and politely declined again. By the next day, however, something inside him had started to stir. It began when a woman accidentally dropped a can while cleaning. As he picked it up like a gentleman, he found himself feeling a brief moment of first love. Just as he tried to brush it off, a bounty hunter showed up escorting a prisoner, and William happened to witness the whole thing. Watching it unfold, he thought of himself as just a bystander, but as the bounty hunter handed the criminal over to the guards and left, curiosity got the better of William. He walked over to check out the wanted poster. At that moment, one of the guards was suddenly knocked out cold. The prisoner sprang into action, quickly shooting down 3 people and set his sights on the last one. And right then, the woman from the night before was caught in the middle. Watching the criminal approach, William began to breathe heavily, especially when the man grabbed the woman. William couldn't help but draw his weapon. He knew this was his moment, so he followed them into the street and raised his gun. But having never killed before, he hesitated. The criminal noticed and shot him instead. The gunshots startled the woman, who began to struggle desperately. Just as the criminal was about to assault her in public, a shot fired from behind. It was William he had managed to shoot from the ground. The woman, shaken but safe, quickly threw her arms around him. Though he still tried to resist the feeling, something inside him had begun to crave that violent rush. Meanwhile, his brother arrived in a hurry. Turns out, visitors here would never suffer real harm, but the pain felt all too real, a fate worse than death. Now she wasn't just surrounded by a crowd, she was expected to seduce the man in front of everyone, using the most provocative gestures. But just as she tried everything to please him, the man suddenly attacked her. The crowd behind the glass watched in cold silence. Even when she crawled to the window and begged, they remained unmoved. Then, out of nowhere, the man approached her again, this time pretending to show affection. A single word from security, and both froze on the spot. But the test wasn't over yet. Following the order from the woman in white, the guard gave another command. The woman was released. Mechanically, she got up from the ground and walked back to her place, grief in her eyes, but tears fell before she could stop them. Just as she sat down, the next test began again. A flicker of anger, something she shouldn't have been able to feel, crossed her face. The old man noticed it, but she quickly smiled as her programming dictated, then stood and resumed the seduction routine. Seeing her force that smile, her creator couldn't help but feel a pang of sympathy. But in the next second, she suddenly lashed out, brutally attacking the man. Her ferocity shocked even the bystanders. But she wasn't done, not until every ounce of humiliation had been paid back in full. The woman in white gave a subtle signal for the guards to stop her, but the fury couldn't be contained. Soon, the man lay lifeless on the ground. The woman remained cold, unfazed by the stares, gently touching her lips. Even with security standing behind her, She did as she pleased. She even took a moment to fix her makeup, because she already knew how this would end. After all that, she suddenly turned around and walked willingly toward the guards. This, in turn, threw the well-trained security team into panic, and they finally gave in, firing early under the pressure. The woman who was shot seemed to still carry a deep attachment to this world. It turned out she was just an ordinary artificial intelligence. She had been created solely to please the guests. After multiple tests conducted by 2 supervisors, it was finally released into this resort exclusively for the wealthy. Here, she diligently carried out her assigned duties. No matter what the guest wanted, she would try her best to fulfill it. But after countless cycles of death and rebirth, something inside her began to shift. She started to feel weary. Maeve told her it might be because her body was tired. At the time, she didn't realize it yet, but she had already started to awaken. Then, one day, a man broke into her world. He was unlike any other player. He not only rejected her beauty but even saved her just as she was about to be killed by a scripted event. That unexpected encounter shattered her programmed role as a plaything. From then on, she secretly planned to turn over a new leaf. Sometimes, she would even take clients just for a single silver coin. Maeve told her she didn't need to push herself so hard, but she told Maeve she wanted to save money quickly so she could return to her hometown and open her dream boutique. What she didn't know was she wasn't human at all, and the world she lived in was nothing more than a game. Suddenly, the entire world seemed to freeze. Moments later, several researchers in full protective suits arrived. They walked straight up to her, performed a few operations, and took her away. And as she finally collapsed, a new set of problems began to emerge. The capital investors feared that the AI awakening could lead to instability. They worried it would endanger the safety of their customers and demanded that the lead designer take immediate action. But the designer creator of these AIs had a different idea about consciousness. So while he outwardly agreed, he secretly continued experimenting, trying to awaken the others. What they didn't realize was AI awakening was like a virus. Some robots had already gained consciousness and even learned to hide it. As the madam of a brothel, she showed up to the bar every day on time. But today, something unexpected happened. Her most trusted worker suddenly started bleeding. She stepped forward, confused and concerned, but in the next second, the blood had covered her head. The woman died on the spot, and the madam herself collapsed right beside her. Meanwhile, a customer in the lounge was openly indulging in the thrill of killing, but all she could do was watch helplessly. As the final person dropped, the deranged man wasn't satisfied. He began walking toward her, and the saddest part was, as she stared down the barrel of his gun, she realized this somehow felt inevitable. After a flash of light, the once lively bar was now in ruins. Her most trusted girl was dragged away without ceremony. She didn't understand why she was still alive until a series of unfamiliar memories flashed through her mind. It felt like a dream, yet she was fully aware. Sensing danger, she left work early. Her years of experience in the brothel allowed her to stay calm on the outside. Once home, she rushed to inspect herself for wounds, but she couldn't find anything unusual. Just as she convinced herself she was simply tired, she noticed a small blood stain on the edge of her pants. A vivid image suddenly flashed through her mind. Panicked, she opened a drawer and began recording the memory that had just surfaced. But as she stared at the outline on the paper, her subconscious recoiled. She hurriedly opened a wooden compartment. Trembling, she pulled out a stack of documents, and to her shock, each one depicted the same image she had just drawn. That's when she knew something was very wrong. She rushed back to the bar, pretending nothing had happened, sitting as she always had. But this time, she was waiting for a chance. Because in this town, a twisted little show played out every day. The same man came to the brothel tirelessly, day after day. Robbing the brothel was his mission. But today was different. He was forced upstairs by the woman. She told him she'd give him the code to the safe if he agreed to do her a favor. Then she pulled a dagger from her waist and pointed it at her abdomen, asking him to stab her right there. She suspected a bullet was still lodged inside her. In all his years of robbery, he had never been so overwhelmed by a woman's presence, but his foolish pride got the better of him. He lifted the dagger with bravado but couldn't bring himself to strike. The woman looked at him with utter contempt. Just then, gunshots rang out outside. His accomplices had encountered the guards. With their last teammate taken away, they now rushed toward the attic. A piercing scream followed as they dug a rusted bullet out of her abdomen. Outside, the guards pounded on the door with warnings, but the woman stopped her rescuer from reacting. She told him, "If we can die and come back, what's there to be afraid of?" Gunfire erupted. Then, She woke up in another room. She quietly observed the environment. One man in the room seemed especially interested in her, but there were two people present and she didn't want to raise suspicion. She was sent back to the bar again, but this time, she took the initiative, seeking out strangers and provoking them, asking to be killed, so she could return to the lab as soon as possible, and see that same man again. As an expert in love games, the man who admired her fell for her quickly, but soon after, she was hit with a brutal truth. The man told her she was just a robot. She couldn't believe it at first, but when he handed her a tablet, she was shocked to see the system predicting every word she wanted to say. She quickly accepted the truth, and from that moment, she was ready to fight back. On a cold operating table, a woman was about to meet her end. All she could do was lie there, expressionless. To everyone else, she was just a shell of a being, but a spark of longing still shone in her eyes. Someone watching from the corner started to cry. They used to be sisters, working together in the same brothel, and that day, as they shared their dreams, the world suddenly froze. Terrified, she looked around only to see everyone else stuck in place. She knew this moment would come, so she turned back to her default behavior. Footsteps crept closer behind her. She instinctively grabbed a fruit knife nearby, but her body wouldn't let her move at all. As they neared, she had already prepared to strike first, but to her surprise, their target wasn't her, it was her sister standing beside her. When the guards dragged her sister away, the tension in her chest eased slightly, but the relief was short-lived, quickly replaced by a wave of sorrow. And then came the anger, rising fast and sharp, because she knew sooner or later, her day would come too. So, without hesitation, she chose to end her own life. She was sent back to the lab, where the man standing before her had already been bribed. At her request, he quickly tracked down her sister's whereabouts, but what she asked next left the man utterly stunned. She wanted to personally say goodbye to her sister, to avoid drawing attention from the lab staff. She had no choice but to appear completely nude like the other robots, but the calm she tried so hard to maintain shattered the moment she saw her sister on the operating table. Realizing they were close to being discovered, the man urged her to leave at once, and in that moment, a seed of vengeance was planted in her heart. Her first step toward revenge was to understand the full scope of the facility, but as she followed the man on his rounds, what she saw first was horrifying. The floor was littered with bodies just like her. The cold laboratory looked more like a factory. Human body parts were scattered everywhere, and only then did she understand why she bled red like a human. After finishing the tour of that level, what she saw next shattered everything she thought she knew. She had never imagined that the memories she held dear were nothing more than fabricated stories written by others. The people she remembered so vividly were just characters following a scripted narrative. The truth crushed her. It wasn't until the man reminded her who she really was that she pulled herself back. Everything she had witnessed left her unsure of what she was anymore. Emotions she was never meant to feel began to surface. Just as they were about to leave, a woman appeared on the massive screen nearby. The moving image caught her eye. She found herself unable to look away. Suddenly, her sister flashed across the screen. Her curiosity was instantly piqued. And then came an even greater shock. She saw herself, especially the little girl in the video. That moment was like a trigger, awakening memories long buried. She had once been a simple farmer with a beautiful daughter, but one day, a man named William showed up at her home. She tried to resist, but it was useless. In the end, she was stabbed, and her daughter was killed. When she came to again, she was back on the operating table. Now, she had found her purpose. She would bring her daughter back and protect those she cared about. But she and the man couldn't do it alone, so she first asked him to help her gain admin access. With that, she could control the other robots. Then she returned to the bar and went back to work. Just like before, her real target was the man who came to rob the bar every single day. He wasn't just an expert marksman, they had also shared a brief, passionate encounter. When he started robbing the safe again and the sheriff intervened, she stepped in to help. Using her admin access, she rewrote the sheriff's memory, making him believe the criminal was actually innocent. Her ultimate goal was to ensure the man could rob the safe without interference. With the first phase of the plan complete, she snuck off to the place he always went at night, because tonight, she would recruit him. She told him that soon, his own men would turn on each other, and he would be killed by his own team. He thought it was impossible, just a glitch in the system, but when he met up with them, everything unfolded exactly as she had said. He was thrown into chaos. At the last second, she stepped in again, taking control of the robots to save him. Then, while he was still in shock, she hit him with a devastating truth. The treasure he had been chasing, the one hidden in the safe, was nothing. It was empty. The The pain of having his beliefs shattered broke him and he collapsed into her arms. Now that she had a fierce warrior by her side, they launched an attack on the research base. The most critical battle? The warehouse filled with awakened robots. Her sister was there, someone she couldn't leave behind. And inside, they encountered someone else crucial to the story. Seeing the man bleeding on the floor, the woman ordered her most loyal follower to revive him. He woke up on a beach, dazed and confused, surrounded by bodies. As he tried to make sense of it all, soldiers suddenly aimed their weapons at him. But after scanning his identity, they discovered he was the owner of the region. In a daze, he was taken onto a transport vehicle. As he arrived at the safe zone, he saw soldiers storming the shores. Then, something else caught his eye: medieval people being mercilessly slaughtered. But strangely, their faces looked oddly familiar to him. He rushed to find someone who could explain, and what he saw next left him speechless. 3 people had restrained a Native American man. One of them made a shallow cut on his head, and what appeared made the cutter tremble. Inside was a labyrinth symbol carved into his skull. Fighting off the horror, he grabbed a blade and began cracking the shell like a coconut. When he peeled it away, he saw it no brain inside, only fluids and a white artificial core. With a special machine, they extracted the core. They needed it to access the man's final moments to find the cause of this mysterious event. In the footage, a woman suddenly raised her gun and fired. The Native American man fell in a pool of blood. As the shooter's face came into focus, the man's memories flooded back. As the others walked away, his memory fully returned. He realized he was the one behind everything. 35 years ago, he and another brilliant scientist created the first generation of intelligent machines. But back then, the robots were still full of flaws. To accelerate the development of these robots, they built an entire town as a testing ground. However, as the tests neared completion, funding became a serious issue. With no other choice, they handed control to the Native Americans, and the leader brought the woman to meet a wealthy heir. To pique his interest, the woman made a bet with the rich man. She told him that if he could identify who among them was a robot, she would personally serve him that night. After surveying the entire venue, the man concluded that the woman herself was the most suspicious of them all. He couldn't believe how realistic a robot could be, but just as he was marveling at her, the woman smiled and waved her fingers lightly. The piano music stopped instantly. When the man sensed something was wrong, everyone in the banquet hall froze mid-action, seeing the personalized product demonstration before him. Logan, despite being a spoiled heir, immediately recognized the business opportunity. He quickly arranged the investment deal for the woman. With the new funding secured, the Western-themed amusement park officially opened. But life is full of unexpected turns. His only son suddenly passed away from a serious illness. He lost all purpose in life. From that point on, he poured all his energy into the robot woman, hoping she would one day awaken consciousness. But his close friends strongly opposed this idea, leading to a major falling out. Still, his determination never wavered. To help accelerate her evolution, he brought her into the human world, even integrating her into his personal life. But awakening an AI is far from easy. One day, he was inspired by Michelangelo's artwork and noticed a certain part resembled the human brain, reaching toward the man in the painting, so he designed a maze for the robot. On the surface, it was a system for controlling her. In reality, it was a tool for helping her like a human find her identity through life experience. But he failed to consider one key thing: the search for identity takes time. To speed things up, he made himself the subject of the experiment, hoping to force her breakthrough and trigger real consciousness. But after his death, the woman, overcome with guilt, took her own life in public. His unfinished project was inherited by his friend, though the friend had opposed it before. Out of loyalty, he created a robot identical to the deceased man. He compiled the man's memories into a narrative and uploaded them into the robot's brain. From that point on, awakening this robot became his friend's lifelong mission. Thanks to the robot's success, they began mass-producing the technology, assigning storylines to each creation, and thus, a fully simulated Westworld, populated entirely by NPCs, was born. The woman was just a simple greeter in this world. Every day, she'd wake up full of hope, programmed to be optimistic and only see the good in life. After saying goodbye to her father, she would follow the storyline into town. As long as nothing went wrong, a pre-written encounter would occur on cue. She would be rescued by an NPC. The two would fall instantly in love, as written in the script, beginning a doomed romance, because by the time they returned to the farm that evening, bandits would have already arrived. Her father would be killed by the outlaws. Then Teddy would appear, trying to save the day for the sake of their love. With expert marksmanship, he would take down most of the attackers, but he too would eventually die. Forced to pay the price for that single day of love, he would watch, powerless, as the woman became someone else's plaything. That would mark the end of her storyline. She would be sent back to the lab, repaired, her memory wiped, and rebooted for the next day. But today was different. While working the farm, her father found a photo that should never have existed. The image left him deep in thought. Sensing something was wrong, he questioned his daughter. No matter how closely she looked, she couldn't see anything unusual. This only made the old man realize something bigger was at play. He couldn't understand why she didn't recognize that the scene was nothing like the world she knew. As the loop restarted the next day, she greeted her father just like before, but when she looked into the distance, she noticed something was off. She realized her father hadn't slept all night. She rushed over, concerned, but the old man seemed confused. Even his speech was breaking down. Just as she tried to comfort him, thinking he was sick, he suddenly grabbed her. He warned her to get out, or she would be controlled by demons. Then he whispered something into her ear and shut down completely. The shock sent her into a panic. She jumped on a horse, desperate to find a doctor in town, but the anomaly had already alerted the researchers. Both she and her father were immediately retrieved and sent back to the lab. During Ford's inspection, the old man muttered something chilling. "Bring me my creator." That was when Ford realized he had awakened. Just as Ford was about to be overwhelmed, the guards rushed in. The old man suddenly grabbed him and warned, "Don't think your cruelty toward us isn't a sin. One day, it will all be returned." After the chaos, the old man was forcibly shut down. The incident forced Ford to reflect. Perhaps one day, humans and robots would inevitably clash. Because of this outburst, the old man was taken offline and stored deep within the facility. They began testing the woman next, but she still appeared just as innocent as before. So they labeled her as stable and sent her back to the farm. Everything seemed normal again. She greeted her father with a good morning, but this time, her father was someone else entirely. And while the woman looked as pure and naive as ever, something had quietly changed. The fly that used to crawl across her eye without bothering her, she now swatted it dead without hesitation. I'm a movie enthusiast. Please subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you next time.